Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dow Jones webinar on leveraging AI for faster due diligence. I'm Vera Akiotu, Director of Financial Crime Compliance Proposition at Dow Jones Risk and Compliance. I'm responsible for developing and executing strategies with financial institutions in Europe, specialising in both operational and regulatory landscape across AML and KYC. I'm joined today by our partners Zapian, Rob Mitchell, Director of Strategic Development, and Jess Denny, Head of Comms and Marketing. I'll hand over to Rob to introduce himself, followed by Jess, who will be moderating today's session.
Vera, thank you so much, and it's an absolute pleasure to be involved in the Dow Jones webinar today, so thank you. I'm Rob Mitchell, I'm Director of Strategic Development at Zapian, and I'm previously of Exeger and also prior to that of WorldCheck.
Brilliant. I'm Jess Denny. I'm Head of Comms and Marketing at Zapian. I'm actually a former client of both Dow Jones and Zapian. A bit about Zapian. We're a deep tech firm that applies large language model technology to the challenge of third-party risk analysis. So we use AI to automate the process of manual research. Our fully automated reports deliver executive level research and insights on individuals and entities worldwide. And as Vera touched on, our relationship with Dow Jones, hinges on our product called Integrity Check, which brings together Zapian's leading edge technology with Dow Jones's market leading data. We'll come into that a bit more. So I think let's kick off. So firstly, Vera, I was going to come to you to kind of set the scene on some of the key challenges in due diligence today. What are some of the macro issues that due diligence teams today face?
What we're seeing is an increasing complexity of global regulations, and we only have to look at what's happening in the world around us today. Industry standards change, and also with it comes the concept of an acceptable level of compliance. The scope of risk in due diligence is growing in AML. Enhanced due diligence requirements are getting much, much tougher. The burden in KYC hasn't reduced. In our opinion, it won't be reduced. And financial institutions are looking to make their processes more efficient. For example, there are increased risks around cartels. We know that it's very much been a focus for the Trump administration. Understanding of networks, how do you look to conceptualize the risks around this? Another example I came across recently was when working with a financial institution, an analyst was doing a name search. They were asking the right questions, but how to deal with French sources. How do you overcome a lack of language capabilities within your team? Also, regulatory bodies now have an expectation for technology to be used across the business. And there is also a growing expectation of the use of technology to support processes. There's also been an exponential growth in data. Organizations want it cheaper, quicker. However, the quality has to be there, and it also cannot be reduced. Financial institutions are struggling with cost and also the time that it takes. Scalability is also another issue. The challenge for financial institutions are people aren't as scalable as technology. If you suddenly have a surge in requirements, for example, acquiring a piece of business, or someone has found an issue in part of your business that needs to be reviewed, how do you look to scale very quickly? I've worked with many financial institutions over the last decade, and when they come to Dow Jones, they come to us with a problem. Often they need that problem being addressed today, need it resolving today. And those are some of the things that we're seeing in the market.
Thanks, Vera. Really helpful. Yeah. So bigger requirements and more data, more information, but gathering that and making use of it is unscalable with just manual manual processes, I guess. So then, Rob, I was going to come to you. Looking at how you do due diligence, where does the risk tend to lie in terms of what and how you should do due diligence?
Yeah, thank you, Jess, for that question. So I've been involved in manual due diligence and automated due diligence for approximately 20 years now. And the key piece that clients and staff mostly missed is the whole piece around actually looking at due diligence in respect of it's usually confined to the primary subject they're looking at or the counterparty. But really, experience tells us the risk rarely lies in that specific entity or individual. Now, the key here is context. So the context is understanding the wider group associated with the company. So, for example, the shareholders, the directors, the ultimate beneficial owner. In other words, the controller of the company. And this is so critical because I have often hear, oh, it's the UBO listed on the corporate certificate of incorporation or the actual corporate structure. Incorrect. It's the person who controls the company. And that's really important. It's also key to understand the JVs, joint ventures, the group companies, so subsidiaries. But why? As I say, experience tells us it's the associated entities and parties where the risk lies. So, as an example, a shareholding or shareholder may have a holding in a sanctioned entity whose company has been exporting dual use goods to Russia, as an example. It's so essential to understand the relationships between these associated parties. It's so essential to really expose what risk these parties have where your relationship and the primary entity or individual is concerned. You know, you finding these relationships through data sets and manual research, it's a hugely time consuming. It's also very costly, and it's also nigh on impossible unless you have the right staff and also the right experience. The way to get to the open source data across different databases and open source data and multiple languages is without doubt to use generative artificial intelligence.
Thank you, Rob. Really helpful. I think we'll drill into that a bit more, and I'll come back to you in a second on some of the limitations with existing tooling. But I'll come to you on that first, Vera. So, yeah, thinking about current tools and data sets and manual research, what are some of the challenges with relying on that alone?
To pick up on Rob's points, the value of data helps, but there are limitations in manual processes to be able to connect those dots. Data quality and integrity are important. You want to use reliable, trustworthy sources based on licensed content. The volume of data, as mentioned before, has grown substantially, which can mean that if you're doing manual research, it can take a lot of time, which also delays the decision-making process. Data is one part, but due diligence is more than going beyond simple screening. There are also limitations around time, prone to human error, and also can lead in gaps in assessments. We know that many regulators acknowledge that AI can improve compliance by increasing efficiency, reduce human error, and also providing deeper insights into the data.
Thank you. Yeah, helpful. So yeah, Rob, you were going to expand a bit upon existing tooling and data sets and how to understand and use data sets appropriately.
Yeah, Jess. So current tooling is mostly restricted to limited open source data sets and also limited strings of words and keywords, mostly restricted to English. The key to a robust due diligence process is you need to be accessing the full wealth of information across different risk factors to gain a genuine full picture of risk. Now, as I said, I've worked in the due diligence industry for 20 plus years. It shows my age, unfortunately. The time and effort and resources required for manual due diligence, robust manual due diligence, really highlights the inefficiencies surrounding manual DD. But the key here is to have a robust due diligence process. But you need to marry that using best of breed data sets such as Dow Jones. But again, twin that with cutting edge technology to bring together more insightful data, which is easier to digest and also quicker to gain insight, immediate insight. So the role of compliance in this, I feel, is twofold. So the first is to have adequate systems and procedures in place. If you're a corporate, think Section 7 of the United Kingdom Bribery Act. You need that in place to highlight wrongdoing, i.e. to protect yourself. But the second is to apply a risk-based approach. And that needs to be implemented within an operational environment so it doesn't slow down the business and it makes the business agile to be able to take the right decisions. And think about this. Database searches and keyword searches are very limited in scope. And regularly I hear clients say to me, hey, there's no match on our database, let's go for it. Wrong, very wrong. Just because there's no hit result on a screening database doesn't mean there's no risk associated with the third party. It just means there's no match on that particular database. And that's really important. Have a think about manual research processes as well, especially using in-house untrained analysts. They're using a prescriptive, very limited research methodology. It's not using foreign languages, it's only using Google. What we've seen, worryingly, is regulators also recommend to their regulated entities, hey guys, search the first 6 pages of Google, and if you find nothing negative, that's absolutely fine. That is a very dangerous path to take, I feel, especially with the European right to be forgotten, piece of legislation, database removal through DSARs, and also negative sentiment being pushed beyond page 6 of Google and down to the bottom of a search.
Thank you. Really powerful. I think, yeah, on that kind of UK Bribery Act piece about adequate systems and procedures, what's interesting is seeing now that we are in an age of AI, what is considered an adequate system or procedure will change. And then that the risk-based approach and the agility that is required to have something that is robust, but at the same time scalable. Again, those kind of come together where it feels like AI can offer a new way of doing things. So having touched on some of that a bit, let's think about what we can do differently today. What's possible with some of the new technologies available, Vera?
And this is essentially why we built our own platform called Integrity Check, which is powered by Zapier. And essentially what it is that it's an AI-powered due diligence platform leveraging both natural language processing that really allows users to simply and efficiently address their due diligence need by providing that deeper analysis, which we spoke about, on both the company and the individual. An integrity check report is an automated due diligence report that really leverages AI to understand the risks that are relevant to working in compliance teams globally. And its purpose is really to fit that financial crime use case. Using a mix of unstructured data, but also structured data, Integrity Check is a powerful way for compliance teams that are looking to understand that and have that unbiased view of an individual or an organization. The software identifies it and analyzes and also understands the risk about that subject, and also succinctly summarizes the data in an intuitive and easy usable format. What we've seen is that with traditional processes, the analyst is given a specific amount of time to focus on that entity, whereas leveraging AI allows you to get that interview and then the context around it, which Rob touched on. Also, Integrity Check goes beyond that strict research. It has subtopics, for example, source of wealth. And when you're conducting a manual due diligence report, often it involves paying a researcher to uncover other sub-subjects, whereas Integrity Check can cover all topics at the same level.
Thank you. Yeah, so it's a kind of holistic view looking at structured and unstructured data. in a few minutes. Thank you. So that's kind of what we can do and what value we can deliver to the teams. But then, Rob, how can using something like that and just using AI within due diligence transform compliance at a wider business level? What does it do to the role of compliance?
I think the key here is understanding where compliance sits within an organization right now, and also how compliance should be viewed in the future. Now, I was on a call yesterday, in a meeting with a client yesterday, and the feedback I gained was that compliance essentially is driven by the front office. The front office will gain a new client or try to onboard a new client, then we'll go to the compliance team to undertake the due diligence searches and so on. So in other words, there's a wait for the due diligence that comes back from the compliance team. And then the complaint from the front office is, well, can these guys not do it quicker? You know, this is slowing our business down growth-wise. And that's something I regularly hear. What we've seen in particular, and the clients we work with, it's all about moving the due diligence process to the front of the relationship, and looking at the compliance team in a different way. Looking at the compliance team of actually providing it's an intelligence unit for profiling who you're potentially working with. Now, why would you do that? Because that gains valuable intelligence on the individual or company that you're looking to work with at the outset. So thinking about compliance as a strategic intelligence team, supporting relationship managers, business development, and the executive team, to take the right decisions with the right information quickly and insightfully, saving time and information, pushes the importance of compliance up the food chain and makes it absolutely critical. So think about this. As a strategic intelligence team, you're using integrity check. You're enabling the business to grow and take the right decisions much, much quicker than you previously are. That is totally critical to what you're doing. What we've heard from our clients is that customers are rethinking their processes. Customers are rethinking the impact of initial due diligence. And this really is enabling a far, far, far more effective use of their resources. It's much, much more rapid to get much more information concisely and automated in a way of producing a report, automated narrative summaries, and a complete insight on your third party upfront. And what that means is that you can streamline the process, and you're going to have lower demands on low risk counterparts, but you're going to get a fuller picture on higher and medium risk counterparts as well. And that's really important from the get-go, as opposed to having to undertake more due diligence into those entities later on in the process. You know the risks up front. So that's what I'm seeing, Jess.
Thanks, Rob. Really helpful. Yeah, I know that some of the things we've heard is that actually where you are heavily regulated and have to do a lot of due diligence on even low risk entities, being able to automate that is so powerful to speed up the process. And then, like you say, with some of the medium and high risk, earlier on what documents and what back and forth you're going to have with the client, rather than finding things out at different stages, which is often, it's that bit that slows everything down. And this idea of compliance moving to a strategic advisory function, I think, like you say, can be incredibly powerful. Now, obviously, we've spoken a lot about AI, and we're in favor of AI here amongst this team. But it's definitely worth a discussion for people really actively thinking about it. What are some of the risks that compliance teams need to be aware of when they're thinking of working with AI and integrating it into their processes? Vera, I'll come to you first on that.
If we look at data privacy, you really need to know how your data is being protected, shared, and we get asked this question a lot by our customers. It is really a key to their functions and processes. And there are really three aspects to this. Firstly, AI is associated with the challenge of hallucination. Our integrity check platform is a compliance built tool for compliance professionals, designed by compliance professionals, which I think is really important to make that distinction. It's not ChatGPT, and we're very clear on how we limit hallucination. We can't afford to make stuff up. An integrity check is instructed on how to identify information, really drilling down and pinpointing the risks. And we also link it back to the original source. In addition, data quality is built on Factiva, and we know Factiva, the world's predominant news archive, which we own as Dow Jones, is really the quality news source for due diligence businesses globally. And for us, it really had to be an integrity check from our perspective. And it's not just about the quality, but it's also the legal right to use this content. AI is sometimes associated with the right not to use licensed content. And also at Dow Jones, us being a publisher, this we take very seriously. And that's why we have verifiable licensed content incorporated into the integrity check platform. Lastly, we take privacy very seriously, and we do hold a huge amount of sensitive data, and none of our products can put that at risk. So what we've done is that we've gone through a review of everything that we look to take to market to make sure that it passes the highest standard of privacy review. But there are also risks of also depending on purely Gen AI solution. The need for underlying structured data is key, and this is what we provide at Dow Jones. High quality data goes really at the heart of our purpose to be the definitive source for truth for decision makers.
Thank you. Yes, I think that kind of over reliance, or like you say, you can't rely on a kind of general generative AI solution because it's all about the data and how it gets the data. And so, yeah, Rob, how have you found that certain companies and AI technologies are able to mitigate some of those risks?
Yeah, Jess, that's a great question. So the key here is understanding that the AI isn't a black box. It's not this magic trick box. What you need to know is what it's looking at and how the product works. That's absolutely critical. If you're buying a product you don't know how it works, then you're going to come in for potential scrutiny from regulators. But one of the reasons that I came to work in particular for Zapier is because Zapier was founded on the very principles of ethical AI at its very core. It's the company DNA. It's the beating heart of the company. It all comes back to those principles. So everything we do, everything we design, everything we code, everything we test, everything release is all tied to the principles of ethical AI and what we do. And I found that, me as a professional, I found that completely refreshing across the industry, because AI is a watchword, but if you can't explain how your product works from an AI and ethical perspective, then you shouldn't be offering a product in this sector doing that anyway. But if we look at the proprietary Zapier technology, which is within the Dow Jones Integrity Check platform, it accurately differentiates subjects with the same name. So coming back to what was mentioned a moment ago in relation to data privacy, so information within Integrity Check is presented back only about your subject, and only then is the AI applied. So the AI is bracketed, it's kept in check, and what this does, it really mitigates against a range of issues such as hallucination, which is what was mentioned a moment ago. But the big one is GDPR and data privacy. And because we don't gather information or hold data on subjects that we shouldn't, that again really, really, really lowers the risk from a perspective of using our AI.
Thank you, Rob. Helpful. Now I've got one eye on the clock, so although we might have some time for questions, I would encourage people to start putting questions through now that we can manage afterwards. I will come now to you guys for closing statements. And so, Rob, actually, I'm going to come back to you on what are the key things that you would like people to take away from today.
I think the key thing to really take away from today is about intelligent disruption of what you're doing right now and the status quo, the manual due diligence processes. And I've seen across my 20 years in industry, across many industries, they're just not able to scale. They're not just not able to scale effectively and efficiently. And that's especially so in the due diligence sector. And as Vera mentioned earlier, it's a marriage between the use of cutting edge technology and human beings to effectively take the right decisions using a much wider set of data across multiple languages in a much more automated way. And I feel as a closing point, the key is to taking compliance to that of a strategic intelligence team and not just having compliance just do this all day and hamsters on a wheel. That's not what it should be about. That's technology can do that. It's about using human beings to take the right decisions. But that can only be achieved by evolution, horizon scanning, innovative thinking by every single one of you as individuals. It's for each of you to make a key difference in the advancement of what you're doing. Think about that, but in a robust manner. So think about the use of cutting edge technologies in the business that you work in, moving away from the status quo of a manual and non-business advantage scenario to that of a more cutting edge and innovative team. You're adding real intelligence and real value to the business that you work in. So think about this. Your business will really thank you for your passion, for your innovative thinking moving forward to see how the business can evolve and grow utilizing AI technologies.
Thank you, Rob. Really helpful. Vera.
Thank you, Jess. In closing, the financial industry is really facing pressure-inducing costs and improving turnaround times without compromising quality, which is really key. What we've seen is that many financial institutions struggle with these challenges, and really leveraging AI offers a solution to enhance efficiency, but also whilst maintaining the highest standards. For instance, AI can automate processes such as generating comprehensive due diligence reports quickly, and also overcoming language barriers, which we touched upon before, thus enabling firms to respond quickly and urgently to business needs. The scalability of technology is crucial in addressing fluctuating demands within financial institutions, particularly when sudden requirements arise. And also, traditional human resources cannot be scaled effectively to meet these surges, but technology can adapt and grow to fulfill these needs. At Dow Jones, we have a proven track record of collaborating with financial institutions to really tackle these pressing challenges, empowering them to generate fully auditable reports in just a matter of minutes with our integrity check solutions. But more importantly, and also Rob did touch on this, by adopting AI, firms can achieve faster, more efficient operations without sacrificing quality.
Thank you both. Yeah, I think that scalability question seems fundamental, right? So we do have a very short time. I don't know if we'll be able to do this question justice, but I'll just throw it out there and we can always answer it offline afterwards. Thinking about where in the overall due diligence structure something like integrity check would sit. Now, I can come to either you, Rob, or Vera on this. I was thinking, Rob, you mentioned about this initial due diligence. So is it right at the beginning that a tool like that should be used, or a different stage in the process?
No, I'm seeing now, especially from the conversations I've had recently, it would sit with the front office. So within a financial institution, let's say private banking, it would sit within the front office as opposed to the relationship managers or the new business development people actually doing all the searches and researching their potential, let's say, private banking wealth management client. You'd undertake a integrity check search against that individual to actually get a fuller picture of who you're going to meet, what their businesses are, who they're associated with, family members, hobbies, and so on and such forth, to get a much broader picture of the person, so you really understand and know the person before you meet with them.
Thank you. Yeah, that's an amazing use case that's just emergent. I think, also in the compliance teams, again, it's just that first stage often. I'm very conscious we're at time. I'm sure there are lots of other questions. I think there's been a URL shared for how to get in touch with us if you have more thoughts and questions. But thank you so much to Vera and Rob, and everyone who joined today. See you soon.